Okay, we're on a roll. We're finally able to write some script. And so far, we haven't done much in the way of that script, but we've learned a few things. I just want to rehash. Private things don't show up in the inspector. Public things do when you declare them. Start is a function that is called when the class is instantiated. Update is whenever Unity does an update at its normal frame rate. Okay, and we can actually remove these if we're not going to use them. Not really a problem. So we can get rid of this, and then we can create a new function, void, in this case, toggle text. Okay. Unity's kind of nice. So I just hit the open curly braces and it gave me the closing one. And if I hit return now, it will automatically put it in this style, which is a pretty good style to use. Okay. And so now it's sitting there going, well, okay, what do I want to do? And its guess is text main.setActive true, close but no cigar. Text main. There's a lot of helper here, so I started typing in TEX, and we got text main button toggle text, everything that it can guess is there. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do text main dot text. Okay, because text is one of the fields or attributes of that text main, and now I'm going to set it equal to something. Okay. And so you can guess that when this function is triggered, that's what it's going to do. But, gee, that's not really much of a toggle. Okay. So really what I want to do is bury this in an if statement. If, text main dot text equal primary text. Okay, and I'll go ahead and build that in there. And I'll take this piece of code out, Control X, and put it inside the brackets where it belongs. So if it's primary text, I'm going to set it to secondary text. Else text main.text, tab to accept that, equals primary text. Okay. Don't forget your semicolons. I always do. It's my biggest source of errors is forgetting semicolons. Different languages have different requirements, and I get used to languages that don't require semicolons, and then I come here and I forget semicolons all over the place. So you may see this later on. Anyway, so this piece of code says if the text is already primary text, set it to secondary. If it's not primary text, set it to primary text. So you can imagine that every time this text, that this function is fired, it's going to switch the text between primary text and secondary text, which is kind of what we want it to do. But now how do we get this piece of code to fire? Well, we need the button for that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and file, save this. Okay, and let it compile. And it should be no errors. Oh, good. I got it right for a change. You're always happy when your code compiles, and it doesn't take much for it to not compile. Now I'm going to bring up my button handler. Okay, and so here's my class button handler, and for this one again, I really don't need any of this, and so instead I'm going to, oops, tab, not tab, now tab, public void. I think I made a mistake on main. I need to go back here. And sure enough, I forgot to make this public. If I don't make it public, nobody else can call that code. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to my button handler. Public void. Okay. And I'm going to call this toggle text. Gee, that's the same name as that other function, but it's in a different class, so it really doesn't hurt anything. Okay, and I'd like to be able to call that other function. So what I'm going to need to do, whoops, I put spaces in the wrong place. So what I really need to do is I need to be able to declare that game object. And we already know how to do that. So use the keyword public, game object. And the game object I want to declare in this case is main, because that's where the function that I'm going to end up referring to is. And so now I can do main dot, and not set active. Nice guess, thank you, Visual Studio, but toggle text, parentheses, there. Now, what this toggle text function will do is it will call main.toggleText. Okay. This is almost unnecessary because I could have the button directly call main toggle text, but it's a good idea to encapsulate your buttons. Okay. So even though this seems like an extra step, it's not a bad idea design-wise to do this. Sometimes your button code will be a little more complicated than just calling some other function somewhere else. What I've done here, though, with this public game object main, is I've allowed button handler to refer to methods that are in another class. And this is how you do that. So that when you have two classes and you need to call a method that's in a second class, you need to declare that class first. Okay. So I've got that done. I'm going to go ahead and save all. Okay. And then I'll come back here. Oh, and it had an error. Why? Let's go look at the console and see. Error. Game object does not. Oh, silly me. I knew better than that. All right. So my mistake was, in this case, a game object is the superclass, and so it doesn't have everything that I need in there. Game object only has a few of the things like set active and such. It has the rectangular transform, which for this doesn't matter. What it doesn't have is it doesn't have all the functions, and the reason is because this class is actually of its type of main. Okay. Now this time it should work. So file, save button handler, go back to here, see if it compiles. Okay, now it's happy. Okay. So the name of the class is also a data type. If I wanted to make that clear in that code, I could have called it by lowercase main instead. And a lot of people think that that is the actually proper way to do that, so you don't get confused between what's the name of the class and what's the name of the object, in which case it would look like that. Okay, a minor stylistic difference, and Unity doesn't care. It's up to you how you want to do that. I actually like this particular style, but if I forget to do it, it is not it's not a showstopper. Okay, so I'll go ahead and save this. Go back to this. Now, so far, I've just written code for the toggle button, but the code is in button handler. And so you might remember that in the same way that we needed to associate actual objects with the script, then what I'm going to have to do is go over to my button toggle text and come down here to on click and associate that script, that function, with the on click event for this button. And the way to do that is the list is empty, so I'll add one to the list. And notice now I got fields, runtime only, because I really only want this to happen while it's running. And I will drag button handler over here. That's the object. And now that I've done that, I can come down to button handler, and it has some default stuff. But down at the bottom, it has the function that I wrote as well. Okay. And so now that's associated. And I hit save. And we'll go ahead and we'll try it out. So as usual, it takes a moment to set up. And now it's running. I forgot. I didn't comment out that stop or that disable set active thing. So I need to fix that real quick. So I will. I will go back to Visual Studio, to main, and I'll just comment that out for the moment because I'm going to show you the way that to do what I actually wanted to do in the next segment. Okay, so comment that out, file, save all, go back to this, let it compile. I don't need to reassociate anything. Everything's already associated. So now I'm just going to hit play. Okay. And now when I hit toggle text, I'm hoping that it will change the text. Ooh, an error. Object's reference not set to an instance of an object. Okay. Button handler toggle text at assets script handler. Okay, so let me look at that real quick. So what it's telling me is that it doesn't know what game model is, that it's never been instantiated. And sure enough, when I go and look at button handler, oops, I forgot to actually define that even though I made it public. Anything you make public, you need to associate in the inspector. So I will go ahead and do that. Oh, you know what? First, I need to stop this because anything you do while it's playing is temporary. And so now I'll get button handler back, associate main to it, save it just so I don't lose this again later. And now I'll hit play. And the error went away, and it's ready to go. So now if I hit toggle text, sure enough, it toggles just beautifully. Okay, so we've got one button working, and we're going to come back in the next one and get the other button working.